Poland. And now we have the death of Vitaly Shishov. He was head of a group helping people who fled Belarus. His body was found in a park in Ukraine. Elena Korosteleva is Professor of International Politics at the University of Kent. She's an expert in Belarus politics. Thanks so much for joining us. Tell us, if you would, a little more about Vitaly Shishov.
Hello, and thank you very much for inviting me. Well, Vitaly Shishov is another victim of Lukashenko's regime. He was a leader of the Belarusian house in Ukraine, helping Belarusian refugees to flee and settle in Ukraine. Clearly, his job was exceptionally important, but that's not how authorities in Belarus saw it. They saw it as him harboring the dissident. And that's what they did. He disappeared during one of his jogging and never came back home. And next day he was found hung in the woods.
Why and how did Alexander Lukashenko hold on to power after all of those protests last year?
It's a very simple mechanism, through fear and repression. Although, basically Belarus at the moment, it has about, 600 political prisoners, over 45,000 people detained. People are being sacked, beaten, constantly questioned, interrogated. People afraid to leave their houses now. And nevertheless, if anything, this kind of fear, it also provokes very strong resistance. And that resistance now has gone clandestine, both in the country and also beyond its borders. And we can see how Ukraine has now been mobilized, but also neighboring countries in the EU, from Lithuania, Poland, Latvia, and so on. And of course, around the world, we see today that Tikhanovskaya visited London, and around 200 Belarusian diaspora people joined her on that visit.
It was said around this time last year that as long as Alexander Lukashenko enjoyed the support of President Putin, he would be all right. And again, there were a few days when people wondered which way the Russian president would jump. In the end, again, he didn't surprise many people in supporting Lukashenko. What's it going to take to get rid of him?
Well, I wish I could give you the date, but personally, I think it's not going to be long, because what actually the protest symbolized back in August, a year ago, it actually showed the beginning of the end. And simply because people can no longer live with his rule, with being constantly abused, and their dignity undermined, and their freedom violated. So to a degree, what we can see is that kind of solidarity across different strata of population, across people from different walks of life. And you can see today that, sports people who always believe that sport, if anything, is apolitical. But the actions of Kristina Timanovskaya, has clearly demonstrated that actually very much everyone today is involved in politics, and everyone should stand up against Lukashenko's regime. So it is clearly the beginning of the end, even despite the fact that Lukashenko is supported by Putin.
And this, of course, is your home country. What's it like watching all of this from abroad?
It is tough. It's heartbreaking. It really bleeds my heart. Although it's kind of watching from abroad, I still have my family living in the country. But it also gives me confidence and aspiration to see how these people continue to resist despite everything, despite all the hardship, despite the oppression, and they continue to fight for their dignity. It gives me also reassurance that international community also supports and stands with them in their fight for freedom.
Thank you for talking to us. Elena Korosteleva, Professor of International Politics at the University of Kent. Nigel Gould-Davis was UK Ambassador to Belarus between 2007 and 2009 and is now Senior Fellow on Russia